I remember first with Cartoon Network, that was kind of my like entry job for them, like kind of doing something for a few months, lots of backgrounds for like a cool pilot they were doing. I think that was a chance for me to kind of prove myself before the art direction job that they offered me.
In today's episode, I will be interviewing Sam Nassour, an art director and visual development artist who's worked with a number of big names such as Nickelodeon, Netflix, Cartoon Network, Disney TV, and is currently working at Rovio. He was born in Syria, where there aren't very many opportunities in formal education to learn visual development art or animation, so he ended up choosing a degree in architecture. While this was beneficial for learning about 3D space and perspective, he had to develop most of his artistic abilities through self-directed learning, including workshops, books, and other resources. To find out how he broke into the animation industry and how he entered into art direction roles so quickly, keep watching. So first off, where were you born, and then kind of what influences led you to a career in art growing up?
I was born in Syria, and back then, when I was growing up, I just felt naturally gravitated to animation movies and comic books, and even when I was like given like animal picture books and stuff, I felt like I want to draw them. You know, like there are cool shapes and colors and all of that. So I think it was like I was hooked to this, to doing art and characters for animation. From an early age. It was like something that I really love to do. Reading comics as well. Like later, I was exposed to French Belgian comics, like Asterix and Obelix and Tintin. Some of my older cousins have a few, volumes of those, and I found them, and that was very much like also like a big hook for me into creating stories.
I saw that your degree in college was an architecture degree. So
That's right.
How did you come to that decision?
I wanted to do something creative at the time, and something that felt also something like a big challenge as well at the time. So I could do like art, but the university for art was 4 hours away in a different city, and in my city there's this university for architecture, and I felt like this could be something that I would really enjoy. And I did. I went to that college and I studied architecture. I was doing floor plans and designing buildings and, learning about the history of architecture. And I think it was very, very interesting to me regardless. Like now I'm not doing architecture, obviously, but I still have like a soft spot for designing buildings and looking at architecture. When I travel around, I always observe. Like I like to observe buildings.
Do you ever design like props or like environments for TV or movies or cartoons?
Yeah, that's something that kind of transitioned a little bit into, my architectural study transitioned a little bit into animation when I was art directing a project, and I was always like doing some 3D blocking for buildings, and that was really useful because otherwise it would be hard to draw this scene from different angles, and my experience in architecture gave me a little bit of that 3D knowledge, and I could model things and render them. And
did you use 3D software when you were in college learning architecture? Was that something that they used?
Yeah, and not in the first year or two. I think I started learning by the third year, and
more advanced stuff.
For first couple of years it was all like hand. Everything was like by hand. You have to draw like parallel lines and use those like this long ruler with a T-shape.
Yeah,
like this architectural stuff. Yeah, I think it was very demanding. Like it was very like what is the word, like hand driven. I don't know. Like,
I know what you're trying to say.
Just do everything manually. Yeah, everything is manual. Yeah. For the first 2 years, but then people started like getting more into 3D software and rendering, and that was a game changer as well, because I also enjoy like technology aspect of it. Like I like to see where computer programs advance in this like in the creative field.
So would have been the most helpful like resources for you to learn from?
Back in the day?
Yeah.
I don't know, back in the day, I think it was all over the place. I remember like I think there was like learning ZBrush and all of that stuff. I was something like the Gnomon workshop. There was like they were big back in like the early 2000s. And I learned a lot from them. There was like courses in art, and they were all taught by like industry leads. And that was kind of inspiring to me, and to learn from somebody who was actually doing the job, you know.
After you graduated with your architecture degree, when was like the point at which you were like, I want to get into animation and character design?
The question was answered for me even while I was, you know, the second year or third year or something. Like I knew I'm gonna graduate and probably not gonna do this for the rest of my life, because yeah, I felt like while I'm studying this, it's really cool learning all of that stuff, you know, doing all of those designs and whatnot, but I didn't stop creating characters even on my notebooks, and on the side of my, you know, floor plan sheet, there's always like a character or something. So it was always like in the back of my mind, you know, training myself to continue to explore this kind of side of myself. So maybe in the future I could pursue it as a full-time career or something.
Yeah.
So that was always for me like, yeah, something that I wanted to not stop doing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I looked on your LinkedIn, like under the experience, the first job listed there is an art director like position. Was that your first job in the industry? I'm assuming not, but was it?
Well, it wasn't my first big job, like in terms of like actual job, like full time, because before that I was doing some freelance gigs, like more on a local scale, more like a graphic design kind of jobs.
Oh, okay.
But this one was like my first like full-time job, and it was art direction. Art direction wasn't the main title of the job. It was something that I also got the chance to do while I was in the job. My main title was more like a designer in that job. Yeah, that was my first job when I was in the Emirates actually, and it was pretty cool because they were doing interior designs for their sister company that they do interior design, like, you know, for clients like hotels and houses and all of that stuff. Like,
cool.
So they were doing interior designs, but at the same time, it's a creative like a house. So they do also advertising and commercials and animations. So it was kind of somewhere in between, and that's why it kind of felt like a good transition for me to the entertainment industry. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. What was like your first entertainment industry, you know, job, like character designer job?
Yeah, fortunately in the Emirates at the time, they opened a studio for Cartoon Network, and they were looking for talents in the region. And that was my second job. I met yeah, I met a few people at Comic-Con one time, and like we, you know, I had my phone with me at the time. That was the only thing that I had, and a few samples of my work, and just by coincidence I met them, and they said, well, let's keep in touch, you know. I think 3 months later or something down the line, I just almost forgot about this whole thing, but then I got an email like, hey, we have this animation project, and would you like to come and work with us? So that was my second job.
Wow.
And yeah, that was like a full-time animation job, and that kind of put me very much into the industry, because the cool thing about that experience, there were also sometimes like we can learn also from the people from Cartoon Network, you know, and you know, how the way they do things. It also put me in the mindset that at the time, because of that kind of title and because of that job, I think it put me mentally in the position that, okay, I have to grow now. I have to learn more. I have to be more like prove myself in a way. So
after you got hired as a character designer, after a while of working there, did you just like get the opportunity to do some direction, or like how does that happen?
Yeah, well, I remember first with Cartoon Network, there was we worked on I was an art director. I designed basically a lot of backgrounds for that. There was like a pilot thing they were trying to do, and that was kind of my like entry job for them, like kind of doing something for a few months, trying to do some lots of backgrounds for like a cool pilot they were doing. I think that was a chance for me to kind of prove myself before the art direction job that they offered me, and it lasted for a few years.
I always was curious about how people got into art direction, because it seems like would be something that you'd have to like work as like a lower level character designer or like environment artist for like a long time, and then maybe get offered a position doing that, but you just jump right in.
I did, because I think maybe one lucky thing is that it was in the Emirates, and also the industry there is not so big.
Yeah.
So you know, I mean, it played to my favor that there was not a lot of competitors, or like a lot of, you know, highly skilled art directors around at the time, and like, okay, I'm available. But I did my best, you know. It was for me that, you know, I took this thing seriously. That was maybe the biggest takeaway from that experience, to take this whole industry seriously, that it has potential for me, you know, to grow. And
so what does like a day in the life of an art director look like?
I can speak for myself, because it's a bit different from every person. It's like
yeah,
some art directors want to be just basically managing people, and that's okay. You know, some of them are more like managing types, like they tell people what to do, you know, this is the tasks for today. And for me, I like to do this part, but more so I like to be also hands-on, and sometimes create mood boards, create some kind of a visual guides for the artists to follow, besides giving feedback. So I think I like to do things you know, like I said, like to be a bit more hands-on. And sometimes if there's a character to be designed, I like to be involved in a little bit, just maybe do some sketches first and hand them over. Just some inspiration type.
So yeah, if you're like directing a project or art directing a project, and you have like several artists working on it, are you like in charge of making sure that everything is like visually cohesive between everybody's work?
Yeah, that's a very important word you mentioned. Yeah, being cohesive.
Yeah.
The project doesn't, because you know, different artists have different styles, different tastes. It's very hard to keep. Yeah, exactly. Like some people start, you know, some problem like we always have, like with some people, like they always like to start coloring immediately. Like, okay, here's my final work. Here, but yes, slow down a little bit, you know. And also like you mentioned, being cohesive in a team, you have to follow like a visual guide for the show.
Yeah.
But it's also the job for the art director to be responsible, to keep everybody's like on the same page in a way. You know?
So do you prefer more of the art directing side of it, or do you prefer more of doing art for films and TV? Or do you like a combination? Like, what's your ideal scenario?
It's a challenging question, because I like both. I like to be, because art direction makes you feel like you have a voice. You know, you can maybe put your taste into something, into project. Like, I like this kind of maybe color script or something, that maybe this visual look to the show.
Yeah.
This style, and you can put that in. If you are an art director, you can put more of your voice in, and that's something that is very valuable. At the same time, I also like you mentioned, like it's a combination of both, because if the project has a talented art director, I'm more than happy to do characters or designs for that project, you know, as long as I'm enjoying the visual look of that.
Yeah. So as an art director, who do you report then to?
The director himself, or
okay.
production.
So there's the director, and then is there multiple art directors on a project, or is it just pretty much one?
Of course, there are projects that have multiple art directors, but for me, I didn't experience that.
Oh, okay.
But of course, there's always, but you know, it's not more than two. I think it's like rarely more than two.
Yeah. What have been your like favorite projects to work on throughout working in animation?
Many. I think I enjoyed working Paddington TV show. It was my experience in London.
Oh,
So
cool.
it was my first time coming to London. I like Paddington as a character. And
What have been like the biggest challenges that you've faced working in either art direction or as an artist or both?
I think maybe the thing that is challenging is maybe trying to keep consistent and keep inspired every day. So that's kind of thing, like you have to come every day to the job and being ready to create something cool, or like some good designs or whatever. So that I think it's a bit of a challenge to keep that all the time, and it's a good challenge to have, because it trains your mind to be able to create in any circumstances.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, always, like, you have to be able to produce something that looks good, and that's not always easy, because sometimes, I mean, every artist have days where they just don't. I mean, they can draw and everything, but it's
not inspired.
Doesn't look the same. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's not one of their best days. So
yeah,
those like the days that you should a little bit try to overcome and put yourself in a more relaxed state and like just be in the zone, and that kind of a mental training. I think it's a good way to.
Yeah,
it's a good challenge to have. Yeah.
Is there anything specific that you would do to like get yourself inspired? Anything you would look at, or any practices that you had to try and get yourself like in the mood to draw when you weren't?
Take a break, have a coffee, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very strong coffee. Yeah, if you definitely helps.
Yeah.
Look, I think opening some references sometimes. If you're stuck, I think it's a good idea to look at Pinterest, or like some of the artists that you follow on Instagram or something. Just look at those works, and then you feel like, oh, okay, I want to do something cool as well, and like maybe that kind of helps you in those days. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any favorite artists like that you follow on Instagram or that you've worked with, or?
Many of the Disney artists, I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
Ari Loftus, for example, Ryan Lang. Out of the top of my head.
Oh, I love Aaron Blaise. Have you ever heard of him?
Of course, yeah. I love his work. I met him also in London. There was a schoolism. Yeah. I chatted with him for a little bit. I was lucky to have a few moments with him. I showed him my work. He was like, "Oh, this is a really cool looking fox there," and like, "I like how you design the shapes." I'm like, "Great, thank you so much."
Yeah.
Yeah, but
so cool.
It was cool. They did like a schoolism live at the time in London, and there was him and Bobby Chu as well. I really like.
Yeah.
The schoolism folks are so inspiring. They're doing such cool things for the industry.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Aaron Blaise was there, and John Nevarez as well. He was there, and I had a great time chatting with him as well. And so I look up to those people from the industry, from the veterans in the industry, for sure. I also met Borja Montoro. I think he's also one of the veterans in Disney, and I was in an event called the Trojan Horse, THU. You know about that? The THU, it's an event that every year happens in Portugal. So it's like an animation games event, and they invite mentors and to give some lectures, and also it's more like a social event as well, so you can hang out with people and network. So last September I met Borja Montoro. He's also one of my favorite artists. So.
If you had any advice to give to younger artists looking to get into the animation industry as character designers, or even getting up to art direction, what advice would you give somebody?
Of course, there's this like typical advice of like practice more, work hard and all of that. But for me, it's more, I would say, an advice on a personal level: stay inspired. That's something that people sometimes lose this inspiration and maybe lose hope in their career or something. But that's something people should always, young people graduating and stuff, they should feel really inspired and always like look at the people who inspire you, the artists in the industry that you like their work, and put their work on your phone, on your desktop. always be inspired, surround yourself with this inspiration, get maybe some art of books, the art of animation books.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just flip them around. And like this inspiration always helps because it builds also your, not only you feel inspired, but also gives you like the visual library, the visual memory of the things you look at. And another thing is maybe I would advise to develop a sense of confidence, like, yes, I can do it, this kind of thing. Like I want to think already that I have a job and I'm doing well. So stop thinking like, oh, I'm still like in a student level, like try to be a bit more push harder and assume that you already are, in the industry. Yeah, where you want to be. And I think that should,
help people visualize where they want to go so they can.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. Did you ever, were you ever involved in like choosing artists to hire when you were in an art direction role, or is that not something that you?
Yeah, I was involved, and like I was like given like a few interviews to have. Yeah.
When you are interviewing, when you're looking at people's work, are you kind of searching for somebody who already has a specific look for the project that you're working on, or do you look for any like soft skills or like personality traits that would like make them a good fit for the team, or what do you kind of look for?
Yeah, I think first is obviously the art that they're doing, like, of course, like if now in a game project, for example, at Rovio, we are doing this stylized, really simplified, colorful looking casual games, right? And when you wouldn't, a person who does realistic art with maybe machine guns and all of, like, they look really cool, obviously, and they look very nicely done and artistic and everything, but it wouldn't be the right fit. So I think first is like the art they're doing, and then there's always this period where you have a multiple interviews with them usually, and throughout those interviews you get to know them as a person. And I didn't do that at Rovio, but I know from my colleagues who interview people, they usually even bring them to the office for a day, even they're not necessarily hiring them, but they bring them over, they spend time with the people and just get a vibe for them, for their character, like how they deal with people. Yeah. So I think that's obviously like a very important thing, but usually it starts with obviously we start with the type of art that they're doing and if it's suitable for the project. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Do you have any goals for your career, for like the rest of your career?
Of course, yeah. Continuing to grow more, like, doing some cool projects, working more in games now, and hopefully in the future also doing more animation. So I think there's a lot of room to grow in this field, and it's always very interesting and inspiring because I think there's more and more content these days. Like there's a lot of back in the day, like there's only two big studios. Now there's a lot of different studios, and a lot of people want to play games and watch animation movies, and so I think it's a good time for this industry, and it's exciting. It's cool.
I hope you all enjoyed and learned something. Again, that was Sam Nassour. I have linked his Instagram in the description if you want to go follow him. And if you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, the like button, and if you went and commented what you thought about today's episode. In order to not miss any future episodes that I post, you can go ahead and click the notification bell, or you can follow me on my Instagram at Aaron Ross Artist Spotlight, where I feature artists based on a daily theme every weekday for you guys to vote on. So go check that out. It's a lot of fun. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.